From 17 once again. This is my Uncharted Drake's Fortune Brutal Difficulty walkthrough. This is chapter 15, On the Trail of the Treasure, which is probably one of the worst titles of a chapter in an Uncharted game. They were really cutting their teeth on this first game, weren't they? And, you know, humble beginnings that got a lot better, even though I think that this game has some of the most interesting mechanics out of all of the games in the series, and it's a shame that they let some of those go. But we're currently climbing vines and doing some Prince of Persia stuff, which, back when this game came out, Prince of Persia was king, so I was very familiar with this kind of gameplay. But it's an interesting moment to be a fan of Naughty Dog. Because of the PlayStation experience, they announced so many things. But do you see this right now? Be very careful when you drop here. I got instantly killed 3 times just then. You'll notice the checkpoint's not the kindest. That guy there has a pistol. And of course in this game the pistols are ridiculous. He will put you down instantly. It's kind of wonderful. And I've mentioned in this walkthrough that the people with the pistols are ridiculous, and that I had a part of the game where I got murdered by a dude with a pistol and then I got shot by a guy with an M4 and it didn't kill me. This is the part. It's kind of insane, but as long as you take your time, you'll be fine. Let's face it, guys. Brutal mode is all about playing defensively, intelligently, and never getting yourself in a bad spot. If you can master those elements of gameplay, a lot of this is just a matter of time rather than skill. And it's one of the reasons why some people dislike the difficulty, because they feel that it's cheesy and it's impossible and things like that. And I believe it's just because those people are trying to be a little bit too aggressive. One of the things that I would aspire to do if I was a creator is I would like the game to be challenging, but also be possible to be aggressively played. And an example of this that I would give, even though it's not the best example, is something like Vanquish, where in Vanquish you can roll cancel into the augmented slow motion aspect of the suit, and you can be very aggressive up to a point. But on God Hard mode, if you run out of time in that slow motion and you fuck your suit, or if you just get put in a bad spot and there's no cover to immediately bounce into, you die really, really quick. And that is a game where it seems like they want you to be incredibly aggressive the entire time if you're playing it, you know, the way that I think you should. And it's kind of weird if you play hard mode on Vanquish, you don't need cover at all. You can literally roll cancel your way everywhere, doing the boost rolls and doing the awesome melee stuff and just getting really creative with grenades and stuff. Yet when you try that on God Hard mode, there are just moments where if you're not in cover, you're dead. And I'm all for difficulty. You know me, guys, I want a challenge, but it'd be nice to see a different type of challenge where it was less about cowering 45 yards behind the battle with my nose propped on a piece of cover, every so often poking out to shoot before hiding to regenerate. Like, that happens a lot in games. That is kind of the paradigm at the moment, and I would love to see it move away from that. But how do we do that, you know? It's a difficult thing to do. And a lot of games have tried interesting things, and sometimes it just kind of doesn't work. Like, look at Quantum Break. Quantum Break is a game that suffered from being far too balanced and not having enemies and situations that could rival the abilities of the main character. In Quantum Break, the power fantasy was so strong, you were like the Hulk in the classic TV show, where as soon as the Hulk shows up, everybody gets beat to shit, because Louis Ferrigno's a beast and he's green. Like, what are you gonna do? He's too strong, dude. Way too strong, pumping iron and all that. So, it's an intricate balance that we find very difficult to do, and Quantum Break was one of those games where it was the other side of it. Whereas here we're brutal, as we do this puzzle of holding the 2 keys, and if you fall here and die, you have to do both keys again, because the checkpoint's a little bit harsh, I felt. Not that you'll fall, because it's not the most intricate or detailed platforming sequence, but there are times when you try and do ambitious jumps and they don't work. The platforming on this game is by far the roughest it's been, because it's the first iteration. It's going to be slightly rougher. But brutal is probably the other spectrum. You die in 2 bullets, which is incredibly quick for a game. The only way to make it any quicker, of course, is the one-shot kills, and those happen in this game, which I find to be kind of crazy, but at the same time, it made it challenging. It made me respect the game way more than I respected Uncharted 3. Uncharted 2 I respected a lot more because I was a coward and I was afraid of the difficulty because I didn't know if I could do it. And that's the thing, guys. You know, the moment you do something and then you have to do something similar, you've done it. You know you can do it. You've got the tools. So it's a lot less stressful and it's a lot less imposing. But if you're doing something you've never done before and you're not sure if you can, that is an interesting moment because there's a lot of self-doubt. And that's not necessarily the case of you don't believe in yourself or you don't believe in your abilities, but you're always going to have that nagging feeling in the back of your mind, like, what if I get to one of those spots where I'll be on this for the next 10 years? You know, what if this is the hardest thing I've ever done? And it's exciting, but it's that double-sided sword. But there is a firefight coming up here, so let's deviate from some of the game talk into what I'm doing. So they give you a very strong position here, which is up on this balcony. And I believe that the game wants you to do some stealthing, or some stealth executions, or something along those lines. I'm going to simply start a fight, because that's kind of how I roll, and I'm going to get hit by a grenade launcher just then. The grenade launchers are very, very dangerous, but they're also incredibly fair. And I don't often say that. In most games, grenade launchers are just bullshit. They're the thing that kills you and you didn't even know it had fired. In this game, you know they're firing because they fire at you rather than around you, and I think that balance is what makes them as fair as they are, in my opinion. Because, can you remember the boomers? And I always go back to boomers, because boomers taught me such an important lesson about understanding what the hell was behind you. Because the boomers were so good at hitting the cover behind you close enough to kill you. And I never understood how they got so good at it, and I don't know if it was an intentional design, or if it was just the repercussions of how the levels were built, because a lot of cover was close together in Gears, because they wanted you to move between cover, they wanted you to use the cover, bounce into it and things. So the boomers would splash you from behind. It was, you know, it was a German brothel, it was just not good. And you didn't speak the language, so you couldn't say no, even though, isn't it just 9? One would hope so, but maybe there's a panic word. You don't speak German, you can't say the panic word, and you're in all kinds of panic. And they don't think that your face conveys anything like worry or concern because they just think you're in the thrills of ecstasy, which you might be, and that would be amazing if you were, but if you're not, good God, you're about to get stretched. But there is a few more dudes here, and they're at distance, and you'll notice the game got foggy. And I don't know if the fog is the engine's way of dealing with draw distance. I'm not too sure. I just double-checked for the checkpoint just then. It said 1 minute ago, so I believe there's not been a checkpoint. Better to check, though, and to be paranoid, because it can hopefully help. But I think after killing him, there's a little bit of a respite, or a respite, or however you want to say that. But the moment you push towards this side, they're going to come out of a tomb. And I remember this tomb because I memorised which one it was, so I could feasibly have a grenade to throw at it. And then when I got here for the guide, I didn't have a grenade. So I was really worried, actually, because my strategy involved climbing up here, and you'll notice, there it was. They just spawned. That was the trigger. If you go even remotely close to that section, you trigger the bad men. So, learn from my mistakes, don't climb up like that. But at the same time, if you rush this, you have no cover, so it's not too bad when it comes to making the spawn happen. And then I'm going to use these spaz, and I'm going to get a little bit of collision shots there, which stop them from registering. But this is an incredibly powerful gun for camping a corner like this. Really strong. And you'll notice these guys have shotguns too, but they just can't compete because they can't see my model, and I can shoot through the corner of the geometry. It's kind of crazy. But I was talking about clipping in a previous video. I don't know what series it was for, and somebody mentioned in the comments. I assume this person has some kind of expertise or knowledge when it comes to modelling and understanding geometry in regards to world building in video games. But they mentioned that there is a tool that you can use to go back in over the models and kind of trim the collision. I don't want to say any more because I don't know, and this guy probably knows way more than me, and I don't want to paraphrase his words and say something wrong. But the idea that once the human has kind of designed the world and designed where the player can interact, that there's a tool that can kind of go through and hopefully, you know, trim it and thin it and make it more transformed to what it should be. Sounds like a job that I wish they would pay people more to do. Because that's one of the things, right? You know, when you boil it down to the bare essentials of games, everything right now cares about 4K for some reason. I don't have a 4K TV. I don't want a 4K TV. 4K to me is what 1080p was when it was really expensive and nobody had it. It's just a thing that I'd not experienced, so it wasn't transformative or life-changing, so I could live without it. And that's the thing, guys. GoldenEye was like 7 frames a second in multiplayer, and I loved it. Because I didn't know frame rate, I didn't understand frame rate, I didn't feel it. I just played, and your eye's a powerful tool, it lets you do that. But now is different. But I also understand that I don't really need crazy, beautiful game looking like that. Like, the games look great. I don't mind. I want the game to have the features that it needs and it deserves. That's all I need from a game. And one of them is the collision. I would rather have the collision be beautiful and 100% honest than any fucking 3000 extra resolution. Because what does resolution do? It makes things look nice. It doesn't affect how you play unless there's something very visual happening in the game. Because when it comes to a game, it's feel, it's not look. It's always feel, guys.